Stephanie, welcome to the
Yes.
podcast.
Hi.
It's all long overdue, but it's finally happening. Thanks for coming on, friend.
Thank you for having me. It's so great to see you again.
Likewise. So let's go back, like where we first met. I met you actually on your podcast at the time, a long time ago.
Yep.
I mean, you were filming in a yoga studio, right? I mean, a Kundalini yoga studio first, and then in the Dear Media studios. But let's go back to the first time we met. You were recording in a Kundalini yoga studio in Santa Monica, right?
Yeah, in Venice. Actually,
Oh,
weirdly, I was
Venice.
just on Instagram and I just got targeted for an ad for a documentary about that,
Wow.
which
Because that was
I'm very
Guru Jagat,
Guru
right?
Jagged,
Yeah.
which also crazy end to that story. Um, but yeah, we actually started our podcast with a production company back in 2014, and then we kind of like outgrew the development space of the podcast, and so they let us take it independent. That was long before like the world of podcasting is what it is today. So we didn't really have a place to land or know what to do. And we met Guru Jagged at a fashion event. And she just was like, I love your guys' vibe. I would love to support you in any way I can. And she just literally gave us her studio it was supposed to be a summer residency, but it ended up being an entire year. While we kind of like got on our feet. And then Dear Media was started. We'd met Lauren and Michael and they absorbed us. And then, yeah, we just like, it became a boom for a second there.
So you absolutely was a boom. And so let's go 2014 when you first started. I mean, obviously they were podcasts, but you were so early on. We're talking over 10 years ago at this point.
Yeah,
And I
that's
look at
crazy.
what you were doing then,
Yeah.
everyone's doing now. I mean, did you kind of like the whole pop culture, and now everyone's a podcaster, right? I mean, it's not everybody wants to be a podcaster. Not everybody should have a podcast, because
I know.
there's a certain level of skill and talent to like hold this. Like everyone with a microphone now is a podcaster, but you
I know.
had a skill that was so great. Like, what was the foresight, or what was the insight that you guys had that this was going to be a thing so long ago?
Think being in comedy was really what like turned me onto it. Um because comedians were really kind of the first people to do it. I mean, I so retrograde was probably like my fourth attempt at doing a podcast by that point because comedy clubs had already started building little studios. Elizabeth had been approached by someone with a production company because the guy that ran her company had also been an early adapter and was seeing the success. And so it was just kind of like just one of those things. And I kind of look for these things in life in general where it's like an invitation in perfect time.
Hmm. Do you
And
did you
kind
see
of did
that
it.
synchronicity back then? I mean, there was such synchronicity in you kind of from one season to the next with your professional life. Did you see it then, or was it only in hindsight that you saw this sort of thread of synchronicity?
Definitely only in hindsight because, oh my God, I am so sorry. Carlo, stop.
Chihuahua break.
No,
This is the
stop.
Chihuahua break.
Drama. Okay. I'm endlessly sorry for that.
Don't worry.
Um, Definitely only in hindsight because there was no way we could have predicted how wellness was about to like explode. I mean, for me, it was literally just I had health problems that I was addressing with functional medicine early on. And also, I was into astrology early on. So it was just kind of like,
Hmm.
honestly, it feels like right place, right time met
Yeah.
with like the willingness to do the work that was required to make it happen. But it was kind of like when we were in it, we're like, whoa, this is like happening. And now on the other side, I'm like, what the fuck? Like everyone is a wellness influencer. I'm like, did I invent the genre? Like, no, but I kind of sometimes feel like I did.
I really feel like, I mean, if you didn't embed it, you definitely were a pioneer in what it looks like today. I mean, it's just like
Yeah.
the iteration of which it's today. It's like everyone's That's So Retrograde, which was the name of the podcast for people that don't know.
And
So, I
the
mean, what?
irony now is that I'm kind of like, now what? Like, it's almost like not, I will probably get into this, but I've been taking some time off and I'm kind of like, how do I engage with my passions that I've always had again without just doing this thing that everyone's doing, because now what I was doing doesn't feel new or interesting. So that's why I've just been taking time to like explore a new part of myself and grow, because I don't want to do anything that's like that isn't necessary. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah. What is that? I mean, have you had any aha moments where you could see what that next part of your evolution would look like?
I mean, I think becoming a mom is a really obviously big thing. I also
Mm-hmm.
lost my mom, so I've kind
Mm.
of just like gone through like the spectrum of grief and birth in this very interesting way in a very short period of time. So potentially it's something deeper, not just about um what to consume, which I think wellness has really become a big consumer market, which isn't
Mm-hmm.
really that interesting to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I noticed, like I went traveling for a year and I noticed that I barely consumed any wellness, but was healthier than I'd ever been, because I just was like not stressed and I was eating out of America, and I was just like living. I mean, I was drinking so much wine and basically consisting on a diet of like canned sardines, and I was thriving. And never once did I put like a protein powder or a supplement like in my body, So I was
Yeah.
like, I think we're kind of lost in the sauce of consumerism right now. So I think more of like, yeah, I don't know, something more emotionally based than
Yeah.
emotional wellness, but that's not even really the right word. I'm honestly still figuring that out, if I want to come back on air in that way, or I'm writing a lot, so yeah,
Well, I've
I
been
don't know.
advocating for you to come back when your time is right. I do think that you should come back in the podcast world because you do have a talent and you do have a unique voice that not everybody has. And it's so authentic because you're not trying to be somebody, which so many people are just playing roles. You just are who you are. So I want to
Yeah,
unpack some of that things. I mean, the death and the birth and this, what you've gone through, going
yeah.
back to that transition of, being an independent podcast to going with Dear Media and really being one of the first, early Dear Media
We were
pods.
the
Like,
it was them, us, and Jackie Schimmel.
wow. So what was that like? I mean, the early days at Dear Media.
It was awesome because before that we were doing everything by ourselves. So all of a sudden we are like, oh, producer, like someone edits for us, like we get ads. We don't have to really like, it was a definitely like a big weight off of our shoulders and a lot
Yeah.
of support. And also everyone over there was just so awesome to work with. So
Yeah.
it was exciting. And I mean, I really credit them with our financial success for sure. Prior to being on Dear Media, we had ads here and there, but we weren't really able to like support ourselves. And then once we went to Dear Media, it was like became a real job, which was amazing. I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you touched on it, but when you were at that Kundalini Yoga Center in
Yeah.
Venice, and
Yeah.
you mentioned the Guru Jagat and this documentary, like what's going on there? I don't know. I'm out of
Dude,
the LA
I
loop.
don't I don't have any fucking idea, but I know that like during the time prior to her death, there was a lot of like energy and negativity around her, that she was like this kind of like captured in the male paradigm conspiracy theorist. Like there was just a lot of like shit on her. And I feel like this documentary kind of explores that as well. Like it's almost like playing into the obsession that everyone has with like cults.
Yeah.
But all I ever experienced of her was generosity and kindness and realness. Even when we interviewed a natural wine seller at the studio, which is like so disrespectful. We had no idea that it was disrespectful, but we were like getting drunk at the studio, tasting all these natural wines, like on the stage, thinking it was just like an normal day, thinking it was hilarious. And then we were in at South by Southwest, and she called us and she's like, I'm sober. Like, you can't be getting drunk at my studio. And she was very firm, but like nothing at all. It was like, of course she would be like that. We got wasted at her studio. Like, that's not cool. Um, but no, I don't know. I think her death was really untimely and really sad and really shocking. And I
Yeah.
think the community is like recovering and carrying on. I don't know why people want to take her down so much. I don't really get that part of this culture at all. I think it's so
Yeah.
fucked up.
I know. I didn't know her either, but what I knew her. I mean, you knew her better than I should have said. I should say. But what I did see from her, she was always nice to me
Yeah.
and kind. The few times that we did interact with. And
Yeah.
it is like people like a pylon, and now she's not even here to defend herself. Because for people,
Exactly. Like, what the fuck?
I know, and for people that don't know, I mean, it was like she had a routine procedure and then died from a blood clot, something like that, right?
Yeah, she had a pulmonary embolism from a blood clot in her leg
Yeah,
because she broke her
horrible.
leg and like she broke it I think in Germany or Mallorca or something, and then she flew, and then anyways it was fucking shocking, and she
Yeah,
was
she's
40 something
young,
years old.
right? Yeah, right. I know. Well, God bless her family. It's like horrible
Yeah.
to go through that.
Yeah. But
So
she made such an impact, and so it's kind of one of those things where you're like, yeah, at least she really lived her life to like the fullest of how she wanted to live it, and I think that's a beautiful example for a lot of people, like,
yeah,
and I don't think she gave a shit that people were hating on her because she was in her truth, and like that's something that I need to remember and remind myself of sometimes.
yeah. So you were riding this wave, this popular podcast, then the pandemic hits. How,
Yeah.
like, tell me, go back to that time because you and I connected during that time again, and I'd been on the
Yeah.
show twice. But then just as friends, I reached out to you in 2020, and the world was going mad at
Yeah.
that time. What was the beginning of the end of That's So Retrograde, your podcast?
I have gone over this in my mind and my heart and done so much soul searching. Ultimately just coming to the fact that it was always going to end, and that that's just what was meant to be, and we had our time and it's okay. Um, I can't speak for the other person in the situation. We also have never really spoken about it, which is difficult. But I think that 2020 was a time where, and we're still in this time, where people have gone in two completely different directions, with kind of the consciousness and the information that they uh, toss around and decide is true. And one of the things that I practice is like not needing to know what's true all the time because we're in like an information war. So I think it's like overwhelming to need to like be right or sure. I think that's a mistake.
Mhm.
But at that time, I wasn't so wise and I wanted to fight and I wanted to get into it and I wanted to be heard and I wanted to speak out against like what I felt like was this control and this injustice and this lie basically as I kind of saw it, especially when it came to like 2021 reveal of the vaccine and all of that stuff. It became very tense, and I was like, let's talk about how we're different. Like, fuck, that's so interesting. I mean, we're like the we're like the ground zero of every person right now, right? You have your loved ones, your family, your colleagues. We're all not aligning. Like, let's be the people who give the example of not being in alignment. I still believe, and this is something this was a podcast that I had in development, but then I ended up not doing it, but collecting disagreeing voices and having these types of conversations. Like, I want to hear that.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that was kind of the beginning of the end. And then I think it got intermingled with personal things because I mean, we almost went like a year without ever seeing each other.
Hmm.
So, we were best friends who saw each other every single day and interacted, and we're very much in like the same world and riding the same wave. And then, pandemic happens. I bounce out of LA, go to the mountains. I'm in Topanga, like naked and on mushrooms 24/7. And she's like, in Silver Lake in a mask. And it's like, we're just not living in the same world. And the work and the personal all just kind of started to, I don't know, unravel, I guess. And ultimately and then my mom got diagnosed with cancer, so I couldn't even like, and so it just all kind of honestly like exploded.
Ugh.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I knew a little bit about it, but
Yeah.
no, I don't know if you've ever even shared that publicly yet. But I mean, I'm
Yeah.
surprised you guys haven't talked in all these years. Like, what's
I
that
hate
about?
it. I don't know. To be honest with you, it's not my preference. I don't I don't really know why I'm so not desirable to be in her life. I really don't know. I mean, I think people can be different and they can still get along. I feel like that's how I am, and not everyone's like that. I love to fucking debate. I love to get loud, and I love to like tear into issues and be found out that I'm wrong sometimes, like I think that's how we grow. Um, and I don't know. I just think I can't really answer because she won't answer me or talk to me, or I
Yeah.
reached out, and it's really to no avail. And then after I had a baby and all that, it's just kind of like I don't really give a fuck that much anymore because my life is so different, and I feel like I've grown out of the person who I even was back then.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's just one of these things that I've had to let go of, which is honestly like to go through a breakup like basically without processing with the other person is so hard. Like it's I I think that we kind of owe each other in relationships that moment of like, here's why I don't want to know you anymore. And like give it to me.
Some
I want
closure.
some closure, and be like, you're an asshole. And it's like, okay, well, at least now I know you think I'm an asshole. And now
Yeah.
it's just me kind of storyboarding in my own zone, which kind of makes you feel a little crazy.
Yeah, all the what ifs, all the hypotheticals, all the narratives you tell each other. But you're right. You're right. I
Yeah.
think that but you did what you could to make amends, and wherever you could have done better, you wanted to be able to say it, and you can only go so far if they're not ready to do it. But I think, we're none of us are perfect, and kind of going back and trying to make it right, even if you're not going to be friends anymore, to just try to make peace is the
Yeah.
best you can
Definitely
do.
triggers like a part of me that I've had to work on, which is like codependence. I think a
Mm,
lot of us like don't tell people how we feel, or we kind of bottle it up for so long. I think this was like my bad, and my participation is like there were things that I wasn't happy with that I wasn't saying because I was so upset, so afraid to like upset the apple cart and like ruin this thing instead of having
hmm.
the bravery to tell the truth and like let it, change. And so that's something that I've learned from that. And so I always just try to, yeah, take the lesson and
Hmm.
and heal the codependence, but it's difficult. I never want to upset anyone, and I always want everyone to be happy and feel good. So
Hmm.
it's something I wrestle with for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned this personal like with your best friend with on the show, married with this sort of larger societal shift that everyone was going
Yeah.
through during the pandemic, and sort of a confluence of these things where it almost was a massive acceleration of a realignment that was probably already happening, where I feel like it
Definitely.
was people like raging for the machine and people that were questioning the machine. And it
Yep.
was the orthodoxy and the unorthodox just sped up that schism, right? I mean, is that what
Yep.
you saw as well?
100%. I mean, I never knew I knew I was like rebellious, as like a teenager or whatever. Like I had my tongue pierced, but I didn't know that I was like, I'm not for the orthodoxy at all. And I feel like it lit a fire in those of us who were more like that, even though we were unconscious to it, which I'm grateful for. Like I feel like I was completely woken up, and I was raging against the machine in all the wrong ways before that. So I'm grateful
Yeah. Yeah, I think it did.
for that moment.
It woke a lot of people up. And I think that you think of your background in comedy and in the arts and in podcasting. I mean, a lot of that has to do with free thinking, free speech, having openness to ideas. Like you said, getting it wrong sometimes, but wanting to learn with the free exchange of ideas and not being afraid of diversity of thought, not being afraid of diversity of opinion. But it's interesting that all of those, let's just say liberal ideas, and by that I mean like like liberty, having the liberty to have different tolerance towards people that are different than you. I feel like we saw such a collapse of that, of people that otherwise would you consider progressive, but they became sort of such a raging for the machine. It was an interesting phenomenon that we experienced when you look back. And like you said, it's still going on.
It's going on so much worse now because there's like an onslaught of information that it's almost impossible to even know what's true on any side right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the most fascinating, bizarre things that you're talking about how like liberalism and progressivism almost became it like flipped, and now it's like conservative status quo, don't question anything, just listen to them and go along with what they're telling us. And because they say things like, let's bring joy back into politics, and you're just like, that's not, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, they're not saying anything that is like inspiring freedom at all. But then on the other side, you have like, you understand why there's such a resistance to it, because it seems almost too far in the other direction. So I think like a lot of us just feel sort of like, I'm disenchanted with kind of like the whole mechanism. And I just kind of want us to like, yeah, go back to like the not even go back, but step into the like idealized America that we kind of all thought we were living in as liberals, which and we have to like create it now again. But before we can create it, we have to agree on what we're creating. And that's,
Yeah. Well, I think there's, with this realignment, I see it's this sort of the working class people and then the elites, and that there's a shift there. But then beyond that, we have a higher percentage of people more than ever in the country that identify as independent. And I think that's what you're saying. It's like just whatever it is, independent in the sense of we are for the ideals of the United States, and we don't really have a label of it. It's just people should have the freedom to live their life the way that they want to and not being told what to do. And I don't think we fall fully under either camp.
No, definitely not. I mean, I also think that I remember when I was registering to vote when I was 18, I registered as an independent because I just kind of was like, not even liked the way that sounded. And I was an independent registered voter for a while. And then my mom was like, you can't be independent because then you can't vote in the primary. And so it's like the system's has always been designed to push us into a binary. And it's just pushed us so far into the binary that it doesn't function anymore.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of got swallowed up in that. Like, I don't think that certain people, get into politics thinking that they're going to have to choose the side and take the money and do all these different things that they do. I don't think that's what like a young person dreams of. It's just that that's what they're forced to do. So it's like, I don't know. It's really difficult to talk about because I'm not really political. That's what's funny is like when you were talking about comedy and, podcasting and being an artist, also wellness. Like if you think about wellness just in and of itself, it's kind of a rebellious act because you're going against like the mainstream kind of like agreed upon American Medical Association kind of, and then even before it was fully captured by pharma, it's a different way of thinking about things, Western and Eastern. And so, there's that rebellious nature there. And I don't understand why we're fighting about like being healthy, or we're fighting about freedom of choice, or we're fighting about like basic things that, in my opinion, we should all agree on. Like, oh no, you want your food poisoned? Oh, okay. Why are you letting them trick you into thinking that? Shut up, Stevie. Why are you letting them trick you into thinking that like they're giving you a good deal if they cheapen your insulin? Like, shut the fuck up. Why do you have diabetes in the first place? Why does everyone have diabetes? Like, I just feel like we're so distracted by the wrong conversation, and that's what really upsets me and makes me politicized. But as far as like politics are concerned, I'm like, why am I being dragged into this? Like, I just want normal things.
Right, because I think the things that we are interested in actually impact most people and are the real existential, I think, threats to society as a whole. It is freedom of speech. Like if we don't have our freedom of speech, what do we have? The chronic health epidemic,
Yep.
The censorship industrial complex that's impacting our freedom of speech, and
Yep.
largely geopolitically, it's the military industrial complex, these forever wars that are impacting societies on a mass scale. Like most
Yep.
people, no matter if you're an American or not, it's these are the things that hurt the people.
Yes. And we're putting money into all the wrong things. Like, it's funny, I'm staying at my cousin's house right now, and I was watching a video. I mean, I want to do bits about this because like my algorithm is like psychotic. Like if you were like scrolling my Instagram, you'd be like, okay, she has gone dark. But I just like I love going down a rabbit hole. Like I'm sure it's something about my astrology. But anyways, I was watching this video of the sheriff in one of these North Carolina towns. And I was in North Carolina, literally like was meant to stay in Black Mountain that got devastated until the 30th of September. And then just woke up one day and was like to my partner, I was like, hey, I think we should leave on the 25th. And he was like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's just leave. Not knowing at all that that was one day before we would have been like truly potentially in like a catastrophic situation. I don't know what we would have done. I can't even imagine it. But literally the footage on the news was like in front of our Airbnb. Like that's how close we were, right? So I was watching the sheriff and he was just saying like, why don't tell the federal government basically to fuck off because they're sending us $750 and that's not doing anything for us. And my cousin got really, really upset because he seemed, I don't know, like he was talking shit about Kamala. And I'm like, all he's saying is he needs money and supplies and support for his people, but it's like we hear these trigger words and we're so on these teams that we're missing the reality and the humanity of what's really going on.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got into that, but it's just really upsetting because I don't know how to build a bridge in situations like that.
Yeah. And it's like the being team like human is like not the thing anymore. It's like I'm team this or team that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really upsetting and difficult. And I feel like, I think with COVID, something I really observed is part of the problem is that people need to feel like they know because that's what makes them feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you don't know and you don't feel safe, that can be a very scary place to be.
Yeah.
But this is why people say this is a spiritual war, because safety is really an illusion. Safety is within your own self. Yeah. It's within your own heart and your own intuition and your immediate community and things like that.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's it. They're looking for safety in the state, right? They're looking for safety in the system, the narrative, the safe story. You're absolutely right. I do believe it's a spiritual dynamic to this undertone, this current that you can feel. And I think back to the things you and I were talking about in 2020, like so much of it, just what was considered woo-woo or fringe or quote-unquote misinformation really was coming, and like everything that was called misinformation is now truth, and then the truth was called misinformation. It's Orwellian doublespeak is the best thing that I can think of, right? It's like the most like weird Matrix bit I've ever seen. There's so many people that were deplatformed and canceled and shut down. It's all substantiated in hindsight.
I know that's just so fucked up. Like Brett Weinstein and Charles Eisenstein, all these guys who like lost their whole entire livelihood were literally just telling us things that 2 years later, there's no denying them.
Yeah.
And that's why I think like we have to be so careful. The other night I had this really weird experience. So I had my phone on the back of the toilet, like just I left it there before I went to bed. And then I went to go pee in the middle of the night and like picked it up and looked at it. And like all of a sudden I felt like such weird, like almost haunty energy. And I realized that like the energy that I felt was just from the phone and from what I looked at for like 3 minutes. And I was like, we all are so unaware, even if we think we're aware, just by virtue of like using it, we're engaging in this just intense mix of energy that is pulling at our insides and kind of like creating this situation where we can't determine truth because we're disconnected from the truth within ourselves.
Hmm. Yeah.
And like the less time we could spend there and the more time, because like I've been traveling, everyone is so nice. Like everyone's so kind and sweet and helpful. And I've driven literally across the entire country in the past month, and I have not encountered one weird, dark situation. Even though when you're on your phone, if you ask your phone, the world is in chaos and you're going to get murdered and you're probably going to die in a natural disaster or from something that you have yet to see. And I'm telling you that that's just not true. If you live with your eyes open, you connect with people, and you lead with your own sense of lovingness, like
Hmm.
everyone's cool.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Detach from your technology and see real life. It's so many people aren't. I always talk about this in the pod is how prophetic in many ways the Pixar film Wall-E was. Like when it came out 19 years ago, people kind of just
Oh my
staring at the
God.
screen. We're turning into the Wall-E people.
Totally. The other day, my brother's boyfriend was like, I want my Wi-Fi to be like implanted in my leg. And I'm like, you take that back. That's not funny.
It's not
Like
funny.
that's
Right.
like bad. Like, he's being funny, but it's sick. And that's happening. I remember I watched a video of a Swedish body piercer turned microchip implanter.
Okay.
And all
That,
these people were like, it's just so much more convenient because then I can just like buy something with like my hand. And I'm like, why is a 2 inch by 5 inch device inconvenient? Like we've lost the plot. Remember when you couldn't even talk on the phone outside of your home with a cord on the wall? Like that
yeah.
wasn't long ago. We don't
Yes.
need things to be this convenient. It's breaking our souls.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Going back to like that time, and even we're in now, this sort of massive, I think, control of free speech and surveillance of speech and censorship of free
Yeah,
speech.
this
And
scares me so
and it's
much.
so, I mean, we're on the art of being well. This is why I'm talking about this, is because
Yeah.
as someone that has, for a living, help people heal from chronic health problems, they were either self-censoring because they were afraid of being censored, or they actually were censored for talking about their own lived experiences. And even if you disagree, or even if somebody's wrong, like we're America. Why did we become so afraid of ideas, even bad ones sometimes? But
Yeah.
albeit like the ones that I'm talking about weren't even bad ideas. That was actually the reality. And
Well,
did
that
you?
happened to me. I self-censored.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was afraid of not really being canceled, but even though that's what I was being told, but I didn't really think that that was true. It was more like I was coming into contact with so many people, friends and loved ones who were coming down on me. And I'd never felt like that before. Like in the beginning of the podcast, I was telling you how much I want like everyone to get along and everyone to be happy. And like, you know, and I want to be liked and I want, there to be this harmony. And so I self-censored because I felt like if I spoke the truth, then nobody would talk to me. But it's like it didn't work. I mean, you can't and you shouldn't.
Hmm.
You shouldn't muzzle yourself. But it was some sort of like karmic reckoning or something. I did this like deep mushroom journey, and I reached this point where I realized that like my desire to self censor came from like a long line of like women who did that.
Hmm. Yeah.
And basically the medicine was like, you're not supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to be the one who like lives the promise of like expression and freedom.
Hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, I've interrupted you, but I
No.
lived that, and that's part of why I struggle to come back out on online again, is because I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to deal with the noise sometimes.
Yeah. And you don't have to be. I think, like you said, it's not real life, but so I think
Yeah,
it's good to have your feet in the ground, like rooted in reality, but you can, yeah, use technology for its blessings. I mean, it connects people, it gets information out when it's not being shut down. But I think so it has, but it's a double-edged sword, right? It's one that we need to have and learn how to live with and contain and have healthy boundaries if there's such a thing with it, which I think that we can do the best we can. It's not never going to be perfect. Did you see a while ago, Mark Zuckerberg he sent a letter into Congress kind of saying what we experienced and saw in our community, in the wellness community. He apologized and he said
yep,
there was pressure from the White House to shut things down. And he said, in hindsight, we wouldn't have done it. And we're prepared if something like this happens again to push back, which, some people could be skeptical and say it's little too late. But I think he's actually learned through this. And what we're seeing as a, just average people standpoint, he was saying as like the head of Meta, that what was happening was wrong.
I mean, hashtag natural immunity. Where are you at?
Yeah, right. Where is that hashtag?
So weird. Like I remember it was just, but the way the mind was kind of coming at the other mind was coming at me was so crazy. Cause I remember I went on and I was like, okay, so you're sick, take vitamin D, like do your steaming, use eucalyptus, strengthen your immunity. Like I wasn't saying anything remotely controversial. And people were like, this is an affront to those who died from COVID. And I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, probably those people needed this advice. Like, no, I mean, not, I'm kind of joking, but seriously, like that's not offensive. So I don't, but what they did, the government used social media as a way to kind of bypass the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
They instead of them censoring it, they pressured the companies to do it because they're a private entity, so they can do whatever they want because you consent to that when you sign up for Instagram.
Yeah.
I am skeptical though, because I see that there's still weird things. Like somebody posted about like their home birth and it got like taken down as offensive content.
Yeah.
And what's very wild, I feel like I can't escape controversy kind of in a way. Like, I home birthed my baby. I am not giving him any shots. I didn't circumcise him. Like, so I'm like, once again, and this world is a new controversy. So it's kind of funny. It's just like, now once you choose your path and you're in this truth, then the whole world is the same thing that happened during COVID. And so it's almost like it prepared me in a way to confront the people who are like, your baby's like a vector of disease or whatever. I'm like, okay, he's not going to have autism. No, I'm sorry.
What's controversial about that?
I think, it's, we'll see, I guess. I think when it comes to social media platforms, we'll see what.
We'll see. We'll see where they are on the side of free speech or not. Because what I've seen and read and learned is that there's this law basically that Washington threatens to take away this status. I forget, it's some numbers and letters. That any speech that could be seen as hate speech or misinformation or disinformation, that they would basically go bankrupt because the amount of free speech on there will be considered to be threatening and Facebook couldn't stay open, Instagram couldn't stay open. And that's what they're trying to do with Elon with X as well, is because it's this, they're protected because they're just a platform, not a publisher. It's our founding fathers would be rolling in the graves.
You have Hillary Clinton literally saying, like, in no uncertain terms, she's saying this, which blows my mind that people aren't seeing this and being like, what the fuck? She's literally saying, we need to censor these platforms.
Yeah.
Because they're saying things that go against what we want them to say.
Yeah.
And
it is the most illiberal, regressive. I don't get how anybody that considers themselves to be moderate or progressive, it's completely anti-liberal.
And I also hate how if you say this, then all of a sudden you're like siphoned into like the MAGA.
Oh yeah, right. We're considered to be far right because we are free speech advocates. But yeah, there's many
people. And I'm also like, you guys, wake up! All these fucking people are at the same parties. Like, you don't think that. Like if Trump and Hillary, maybe not them two, because they're now, they're adversaries, but they were friends. Like they all go to the same parties. They all have the same donors. Like it's not that different.
No, well, it's not. And that's why I think this realignment is, you see it. I mean, you see it in the sense of it's now the Cheneys endorsing Kamala. I mean, it is the system on one side and then this sort of ragtag group on the other side. Again, it's broken because it's taking someone like Trump to like crash and break it. And there's people in the middle like us that are like, well, what is going on here? And I think of a book. It was written years ago by someone on the left. Her name's Naomi Klein. I don't know if you've read it. It was called Shock Doctrine. And I think about the time we're living in now and how prophetic she was, that uses throughout time s- government states would use natural disasters or acts of terrorism to push through legislation or to get away with things. Like you said, they kind of used the pandemic to push through stuff that they otherwise would never be able to push through because we were
Yeah.
distracted and fighting each other and afraid.
Yeah. And it's just wild. Like, my brother was texting me the other day and he's like, so you think climate change is real, right? Like, you don't think that, like, the government controls the weather. And I'm like, I think that everything is on the table. I don't know what's true, but I think that it's possible. And I think that it's also possible that climate change is real and probably is. And also it's possible that they do those things. Like, why do we have to decide it's one versus the other?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't it just be that a lot of things are happening at the same time and we don't need to, like, it's identity politics. That's what is the fucking problem, is that what you believe becomes who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you're not part of that gang, then you're like a crazy person.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, take your identity out of this. Why are you even involved with this at all? This has to do with, like, the well-being of the group and of the planet. Like, what about the planet? I
Yeah.
think we're just, it's not out of the realm of possibility because, but again, if you believe that they're doing that, then you can feel that you're unsafe. And then who do you trust? And everyone just wants their fucking dad in the room. I
Yeah.
really feel like everyone
Yeah.
just wants
Yeah. Or their mom.
or their
And
mom.
or their mom. You're right. And it's what's a shame is that when a people have been lied to so much, then it creates more of a problem because the people are then questioning everything because they don't
Yeah.
believe anything that they're being told. But if
Yeah.
yet there was honesty and openness and like sunlight's the best disinfectant, then I think people like the government could start gaining trust again and people could start to believe what they're being told. But there's just so much distrust. How could you we second guess everything.
I know it's really sad because I'm also not someone who's like, I don't know, I guess this would be like a libertarian or something who's like, no government, all the people do everything. Like, I think that the government is meant to be like a collective representation and like an order maker for masses in a positive sense.
Yeah.
And like, if it wasn't for the government, like we wouldn't have roads, like normal things that they're supposed to be doing to like
Yeah.
organize society,
Infrastructure.
infrastructure.
Yeah.
But I think it's unfortunate that there has been a very nefarious, dark force that has, and that sounds so woo-woo, but has been a part of our society for longer than we've been alive. Like, if you think back to like the 50s and the creation of the American dream and like the wars that were going on every way that this whole thing has been structured, if you really start to poke at it, it's kind of a house of cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. Like, I get that it's scary and like I can go dark sometimes, but then I just remember that like we're like quantum creators who can decide anything. So like,
Yeah.
who gives a fuck? Like, who cares about that? Really, if you just like untether your identity from it a little bit and you go to like what's really true, like energetically, I think that it's kind of amazing that it's falling apart and there shouldn't be fear. There should be excitement and a collective kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
mind meld. Why aren't like the greatest minds of our time? That's why the Trump like force of like Tulsi and RFK and all these people coming together is so cool because it's like the first version of all the smartest. I'm not saying that Trump is, but whatever, or whoever is, but it's the first version of, by the way, I don't even hate the guy that much. Like at this point, I have like my syndrome of derangement isn't like he's evil. I'm just kind of like, he's silly. He's a silly man. But like he seems like a fun uncle, but that's why it's so cool that they're all coming together because that's like the first version of what I think is ultimately and
Mm-hmm.
will be the next thing when it comes to government is collectivism,
Yeah.
not one president.
Yeah. Right. It's not about him, right? Or any
Yeah.
one person. It's like, well, what are the ideals of freedom, right? What are the
Yeah.
ideals of freedom and whoever that is? And like I said, whoever ends up being the winner of this election, these issues still remain. And like when we're talking
Exactly.
about free speech, the health of people, censorship, I mean, this stuff, forever wars, they will remain. It's just a matter of which way are we going to go, and ultimately time will tell, right?
I think that if we try to stay this course, regardless of who's in power, it doesn't matter because the wheels will come off the wagon because the energy just isn't aligned with really what is trying to happen. You know, we're in
Hmm.
a new time. We're in like Aquarian energy. It is group energy. It's revolution. It's new systems. It's all these different things that if we just keep trying to hold on to the old, like
Yeah.
just they can't control everything like that they think that they can.
Yeah. Well, I think it's
So
like there's so much out in the open now. I don't know how they can, right? They really can't anymore. It's just like people know too much.
yeah, I remember forget what year it was. I think it was like 2019 or 2020. It was one of the years very recently in the past 5 years where there was some type of like energetic shift that was like all things concealed will be revealed.
Hmm.
And it's happening. Like
Yeah.
there is really, I mean, things are still classified, but like more and more and more, the idea of hiding things is it's almost like it just doesn't resonate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, things come out. So I have a lot of faith in that.
Yeah, me too. I think overall, like you said, like it's definitely a transition period, and it can be uncomfortable, and we can go
Mhm.
through some maybe relatively dark times or uncertain times, but ultimately, I think that there's this rebirth potential. Don't you feel that?
Yeah. And I think that we have to be careful because, okay, look at what just happened with like Hurricane Milton, right? Like everyone was talking that that was going to be like the cataclysm of the 20th, 21st century.
Hmm.
People were reporting on like it was almost like they were calling it into being. Like they were reporting on death and destruction before it ever happened. Every news update, everything on my phone was just how horrible this storm was going to be. It wasn't that,
Hmm. Right.
you know?
My
So
wife
it's
and
like,
I were watching the news, and the anchor, it was the CNN, was even just saying, "Well, look." Basically, the anchor was calling for the reporter on the ground to basically find more destruction. Like there has to be more.
they, I know, like they want it to be bad. And it's like, why are we all calling this into being? Why aren't we coming together to call something else into being? I think that's something that I think about when I think about coming back into wellness too, is like I'm over like the personal, like, oh, you want to manifest like your dream house and you want to manifest your man. Cool. What about the thing that we're all manifesting together? The fact that like I believe that like Trump even became so popular because nobody stopped talking about him for fucking 4 years. Like you couldn't turn on the news without hearing his name. We did that.
Hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
what we do with everything. So like that's what I think we need to realize is that we have this power to create stuff together that we're not really tapping into.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. So what's this? You mentioned home birth. Like what
Yeah.
was that magical, powerful a- act
I
of
recommend.
sovereignty like?
um, for me, I couldn't have, I was much more scared of going into the hospital for birth. Because I took a birth class from my friend Carson Myers. She does
Yeah, she's
growing
great.
together. Yeah,
She's
she's one
in
of
North
my,
Carolina. How's she doing? It's like,
yeah, I was visiting her. I was there for her wedding, and then she happened to be in LA for the hurricane, which is fucking unbelievable.
yeah, I
Um,
saw that she was in LA then. That's good. She's safe and
yeah, I mean, the timing on that was like, I mean, her house was okay, but they would have been stuck up there for a while. But anyways, in her class, you kind of learn like she's biased, but she does a very good job of giving you the facts of both because she doesn't want her opinion or her preference to make the decision for other people.
she's been on the podcast. I'll put the link in the
Oh,
show
she
notes
has.
for the
Oh,
episode. Yeah.
she's so amazing. But anyways, I learned about like really what happens in the hospital, and I was like, no, you're not gonna like strap me down, hook me up to machines, pressure me into having an epidural, tell me what I can and can't do. Like, I do not function well inside of like authoritative speak or anything. I'd be like raging if they were like, you can't go 4 feet to the bathroom, whatever. Like, we have to come back and check your pulse. I would be like, get the fuck off of me. Like I couldn't imagine that. And I think like not ever having had a kid before, my like the naive part of me never really even it fully envisioned what giving birth would be like. So it like enabled me to be extremely brave because I didn't know what it was gonna be. And it wasn't really bad. Like that's the thing. I think that because we have a culture of hospitalization and medication is the norm, the idea of home birth unmedicated seems like so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you don't have to do anything to give birth. Your body does it. All
Yeah.
you have to do is breathe and like stay in it, you know, believe in yourself, trust your body, trust the people around you. Like I had an amazing midwife and I did have my OB there, but she's like a home birthing OB. Because I was like, it's my first one, like maybe there's going to be fear that comes up, I don't know, I just would rather have like a doctor in case of a medical emergency, but
Yeah.
that's very rare, you know. that's
Right.
that's not my, you know, my baby came out with his cord around his neck like 4 different times, and in my birth video you literally just see her go like sink, sink,
Yeah.
sink. It wasn't being choked, it wasn't anything, it was just that's natural. Like one in like 3 babies is born with cords around their neck, you know. So
Yeah.
there's all different things that we're kind of conditioned into thinking and creating fear around, and birth was one of the most like liberating actions out of that, because I just realized how honestly like how sad it is that so many of my friends haven't been able to have this experience, because all along the way people are telling them that they can't do it for all these different reasons.
Yeah. You're absolutely
And they
right. And you look at the statistics every year, the conventional statistics are out of all industrialized nations, the United States has some of the worst infant mortality, maternal mortality rates. And we're not even questioning the fact that this the most effective way, the way that we do births?
no, because they fuck with you. They fuck
It's
it
it's,
up.
it's fear again. It's fear.
It's so much fear. And, you know, for me, I was even like, I went through this whole thing during my pregnancy where I couldn't even get a massage from a man. Like, everyone that I worked with had to be a woman, because I was kind of like, I don't want anyone who's not connected to this talking to me or touching me because you're not going to tell me like how my body works if you've never had a child.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, I want like, in the absence of like having grandmothers and mothers and tribal elders, I want my community that I create around me in this space to be elders that I trust through wisdom and experience.
Yeah.
And that really was, I mean, my birth was 13 hours and I pushed him out in 30 minutes, and I don't remember any of the pain.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like, I remember that it was challenging in moments, and there was a few times where like I wanted to give up, and of course I made the classic like, is it too late for the drugs joke.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
But it goes by so fast, and something I was telling myself during that time is, you don't remember pain. Like pain, you can't recall it. You can remember that you had it, but you don't remember how it felt. So if you can just like endure discomfort, then in one day, you're fine. I mean,
Yeah.
with giving birth, you know, you're still bleeding and can't walk and all these different things because you've just gone through like an insane body experience.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like you're traumatized or something, you know?
Right. Well, like you said, you have experts there in the space. That's how humans would have had babies for the majority of human history. And it's like going back to choice again, like choice. If you want to have a hospital birth, have a hospital birth. But I think that's like the stigmatization of something other, something different is really the theme, I think, of today's conversation, and be okay
Yeah.
with people that are different than you.
And I also think, I mean, I just like really want to encourage everyone to like question more things, you know, like, why do you feel that a hospital birth is more safe? Like, really, what is that coming from? Is that the objective truth, or is that just what you've always been told?
Yeah.
And obviously there's risks in all things, people can have perfect hospital births and they can have horrible home births. It's not like
Yeah.
that doesn't exist. It's just a lot of the things and a lot of the intervention that women go through in the hospital under the promise of safety actually
Hmm.
makes their birth much more difficult. And the rate of C-sections is astounding. Like, and the way that they talk about C-sections, like it's just this fucking Botox shot. It's like, dude, you get cut open, they take all your organs out of your body and basically put them on the fucking table next to you. Then they take your baby out, then they don't even put it on you for a little while, and then you wonder why you
Yeah.
can't breastfeed. It's like, what the, like,
We've normalized something that is, yeah, a surgery. It is a surgery.
we've
Yeah.
turned a natural process into like a major surgery. And I think it's sad, and I think women are getting robbed of really knowing what their true power is. And I feel
Yeah.
like for me, it really like awakened that of like, I've been getting my period for 20 years. I never understood what the fuck was going on in my body.
Hmm.
I never really was connected to my femininity in that way.
Hmm.
And
My,
after giving birth, I'm like, oh, I'm a woman. Like, hell yeah. Like, do you know what
yeah.
I did? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's powerful, natural, normal. It's threatening. It's threatening, but it's all of those things.
Why? Why is it threatening? Like,
Yeah. Well, it's threatening to, I think that asking questions about it, it seems to be subjugated quite a bit.
yeah.
My
Yeah.
friend,
I mean, because what, then the hospitals like won't make enough money, or I mean, I don't know. I'm also rebellious. Like, I ate sushi my entire pregnancy. I smoked weed. Like, don't ask me because I just do whatever the fuck I
I,
want.
I wouldn't advocate the smoking the weed bit, but
Not, oh, I didn't. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I ate edibles.
Okay. All right. Well, you do you. I'm just saying for my telehealth patients that may be listening.
Oh yeah, you're not allowed to say
It's off.
that.
It's off protocol. It's off protocol.
I just felt like I've been smoking weed and ingesting weed since I was 15. And if I were to stop, I think it'd be more traumatic for my body and my baby than
Yeah.
to just like, I was like unable to take a lot, but it was like my dose. Like if I could eat a 5 milligram edible, not pregnant, I could eat like 0.5 milligrams pregnant. And that was just like enough to keep my nervous system like regulated
Yeah. Hey, I love it. So
and
my
not nauseous and in a
yeah,
good.
yeah. And microdosing, a lot of these things can be very therapeutic.
Yeah.
Um, as you know, the podcast is called The Art of Being Well. At the end of every
Mhm.
episode, I'm going to ask you a few questions. This is your art of being well, Stephanie. First
Okay.
question is, what is the most disgusting food that you eat, but it's the healthiest, most, it tastes disgusting, but it has some amazing health benefits that you love?
It's not really a food, but I eat shilajit.
Yes, it's a it's a taste for
It
sure.
tastes like ground, what I would imagine like the ground tastes like.
Yeah. Mineral
But
rich ground. Yeah.
yeah, very, very dense mineral ground. But I really love the effects. I feel like it really gives me a nice little energy boost and like a feeling of strength.
Love it. Do you
And
take
then I also really love sardines, but to me they
Yeah,
don't taste.
yeah. You need to write a book about this. Your canned sardines and wine food protocol.
Yeah. Protocol.
I'm sure there's a name for that, like Italian grandmother or something like that.
It's Portuguese grandma.
But yeah, Portuguese grandmother. The next question is, what's somewhere you haven't traveled to, but it's on your bucket list?
I have not traveled to Japan, and I would really like to go there
It's on my
for
list.
for the food, for the spirituality, for the vintage clothing, just for the fast trains, for all of it.
Do you know what Enneagram you are?
That's like the only personality system that I haven't gotten into. Um,
Yeah. Do you know
I
like anything else? Like any other personality code result that you have?
I know that what my human design is. Is that it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We've talked about it on the pod. What's your human design?
I'm a manifesting generator 5-1 investigative
Amazing.
heretic investigator, which honestly makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's
My,
fascinating. The human design system is fascinating.
it's my new favorite. Like I'm such a astrology, like, I mean, I consider myself an amateur astrologer. Um, but human design is like my new favorite because I feel like it opens up a whole new world of understanding. Like even for our conversation. So in human design, you know how you have like the gates and like the body graph and what's open and stuff.
Hmm.
So I have an open head and an open root. And so knowing that helps me so much to not need to decide things like how we were speaking about, like where I'm like, oh, my brain, my head energy is like receiving, processing, like letting things out. Like it's all just kind of like happening in there, but it's not like original ideas. It's just sort of like mashing things together. And I'm through knowing that I'm learning to let it all go.
Mm.
And it's so liberating because I'm just like, oh, I'm just an open head. Like things just come in and out. And I'm just telling you what I'm hearing and seeing. And you don't need to make this about me. You know, when I have conversations with people about some of these more out there ideas, I'm just kind of like, I'm just reporting live from the field. I'm not telling you that this is true. And it's liberating
Hmm.
because then I don't fall into the trap of needing it to be my identity.
I love it. Great wisdom. What's a book that you've read recently? It could be fiction and nonfiction. I'm like having a running Art of Being Well book club. What should I add to the list?
Okay, I didn't read this recently. I read it like 2 years ago, but it's one of best books ever. It's called All About Love by Bell Hooks.
What's it
Has
about?
anybody recommended that?
No, it's newly on the list. Never been said before.
It's so good. It's just she examines the word love and kind of breaks down all the different aspects where we or the life areas where we use love and how we don't really have bigger definitions for it, and that's why we don't really fully understand what it is and how it functions. And she like posits that it's like it's a verb, it's not an adjective. And so
Yeah.
it's like it's all the different life areas and where love comes into play and how it functions. It's just like it's so good and beautiful and really like opens your heart and your mind to living from a loving place, not
Mm.
just like falling into the trap of like I want to be in love, or you know, however we oversimplify it. It's
Yeah.
like much more rich and complicated than that. And it's such a good book. You're talking about it right now, I'm like, I gotta reread that.
It sounds amazing. I think
That's
that's a
really good.
good place to kind of wrap this up because we talked a lot about heavy stuff, right? That can be scary for some people. We probably kind of got people some thinking and they're nervous about maybe what they thought was true. Maybe they're going to question some stuff. But all of this there's such a thread of grace and love. And ultimately, am a half glass full kind of guy about all of this stuff. And like you said, love is a powerful force and we should trust more in it.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, any of the resistance that you or I have about, you know, let's just call it like the things that we came online to in 2020 and continue to unravel and explore in our lives, like at the end of the day, all we care about is humanity and connection and health and the health of ourselves and each other and of the planet. And so it's like, even if we're being rebellious, even if we're being investigators, even if we're saying, you know, rage against the machine, fuck the man, it's all because we want the world to be a beautiful, happy, healthy place.
Yeah. Amen to that. My friend,
Yeah.
where can people go to learn about your amazing, just continue this conversation with you online? And I mean, you need a podcast. I mean, it's just this conversation confirmed it for me. You need to come back.
Yeah. You know, our dear past friend, Jill Willard,
Yes.
um, I was speaking with her a lot in 2022. We had reconnected anyways. She was like obsessed with us connecting. She's like, you and Dr. Will Cole need to podcast together. Like, you have to build a panel and he needs to be one of your 4 panelists. And so
Hey, it
if I
happened.
do that, I will be calling you.
Jill's in heaven right now, smiling.
Loving this.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
friend, where do people go in the meantime until you
Um,
get this new show? Where do people go?
I you can just Instagram. No, I do have an Instagram. My handle's Simbari, but also I have a Substack that I like did podcasts on, and I do write articles. But then when I had my baby, I was kind of like, what's work? I've never met her. So I'm just sort of coming back. I'm just sort of coming back. I'm coming out of my 9 hermit year into a 1 year. So I think that I'll be activating again. So my Substack is just substack.com/Stephanie Simbari. It's called Mom and Dad's House. And also then you can find me just on Instagram at Simbari.
My friend, thanks for coming on.
This was so fun.
So fun.
Thank you so much.